It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 355. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashkar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hi.
Kodra.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Be sure and copyright your magic deck before someone else does.
What? Okay.
Yeah, hold on. We should just talk about that.
We should talk about this. What the hell is this?
Somebody, basically a known copyright troll who
But not in the normal sense of that term.
Yeah, is deliberately trying to point out the flaws in copyright law, has copyrighted a black-white Angels and Demons magic deck. And so could theoretically prevent anybody else from playing that deck. Although, I don't know, because it's copyrighted as a collection of cards. So if you used a different version of the lands than the one he used, would it no longer be the copyrighted deck? I don't know.
I mean, it feels like you would need to at least get a mechanical license, like you do if you want to perform a song.
Well, it's weird because it's so what the thing is you can't copyright just like a list of things, but if it's a curated collection, then that implies some level of creativity / opinion, whatever, on your part, and apparently that makes it copyrightable. So he had to make decisions about which cards to include and which cards to not. So
What is a deck but other than a curation of magic cards?
Yeah.
So okay, first of all, obviously you couldn't sell that deck. That would go against the copyright. However, depends on how he wrote the copyright, because playing a deck could be construed as a performance.
That is exactly the point.
Yeah.
Is if you are playing this deck in a tournament for monetary gains, then you might be in violation of the copyright.
You might owe him a licensing fee.
But what happens now with streaming tournaments? This is a rabbit hole. This is a big rabbit hole.
That was the point.
The whole point of this is the U.S. copyright system is dumb.
Is broken in so many ways.
Well, and it's true because our patent and trademark system is awful and leads itself to copyright trolls.
Mm-hmm.
Of the other sort.
I used to work for a company and we built a product, but they never could figure out how to actually sell that product. But they did get a patent on the idea of that product, and now go around suing anybody that puts an app on an app store that is a survey tool.
Yeah, anything that looks vaguely like the thing that they patented. Yeah.
I hate that some of my work went into this madness, but now that's what they do. They're patent trolls.
Yep.
That's disturbing in some levels.
Yeah. But I mean, my argument would be that if he has copyrighted a collection of cards, then it's these specific cards from these specific sets with this specific art on them. So if I use one of the more recent Sarah Angels with different art, it's no longer the same collection, even if every other card is the same. So
well, I would go so far as to expand that, or at least it would be arguable to expand that to he copyrighted
the specific cards
that he owns. So if someone wanted to make a photo book of his collection of cards, they would need a copyright.
I think that's what Cory Doctorow was saying is going to be the most likely interpretation here.
Yeah, probably. But yeah.
Man, people are crazy.
It's a mess. It's all a mess.
So
what is transformative? Who the hell knows?
Yeah. I mean, and that's a problem with all of the DMCA claims and what is fair use, because it is not a clearly defined concept, and it's also not a concept that exists in other countries.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Fun times. I'm a little sadder about humanity now. So, a game that has been in development for a really long time that is a Kickstarter project officially launched this week. My theory is this game exists entirely because people referred to the character as Sword Boyfriend
in Transistor.
Yeah.
I mean, I assumed this was like a retaliation against the existing genre of, like, anime girl dungeons. Because those are
type where they make airplanes and warships into anime girls.
Yeah, well, yeah, and stuff like that too. So I just assumed that this was, like, okay.
It could be all of the above. But it's Kit Fox.
And it's a boyfriend dungeon.
Fight monsters with your sword, and then kiss your sword.
So I have to admit, I had every intent of playing this the other night because my backer copy was on Steam, and then I noticed it was on Switch, and I went ahead and bought it on Switch as well, thinking, oh, well, this would be a fun Switch game. But then, apparently it had been so long since I turned on my Switch that I had a Switch patch in the way, so the game didn't download, and I ended up playing West of Loathing instead. So I've not gotten anywhere in this game.
Also an excellent game to play, but yeah.
It's not a super long game. I reached the credits today, but I have been playing it pretty much nonstop since the moment that it was officially released.
So,
oh, wow.
I mean, it not being a super long game is probably for the best, since it's also kind of a dating sim with lots of options.
Well, I mean, Boyfriend was pretty short, too.
Yeah, I kind of assumed it was the same sort of deal.
Well, so one thing that I greatly appreciated about it is that it's a dating sim with lots of options. But unlike most of the other ones that I have played, which isn't a lot, none of the potential suitors care if you're dating all of the swords at the same time. So you can just smooch all of the swords, everybody's fine, and you can, as far as I can tell, romance everybody in the same playthrough.
Oh.
That's nice of them.
But it's delightful. I've seen some various commentary about it, but one thing that I certainly greatly appreciated is that at the start of the game, it lets you know that, hey, this game will send you supportive text messages from a character called Mom. Is that okay? Doesn't have any bearing on the game, just part of the flavor and the story.
It's just, would you rather these text messages come from from somebody else?
No, they just take them out.
They'll just take them out entirely. Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's nothing required about them. Having played through it, they don't. I mean, they're just sort of extra flavor. But as someone who just recently lost their mom, I was really grateful that it told me that, and I chose to leave them in because I figured that it's a game. I wanted to see what it was, and I knew that I could turn them off if I felt different ways about it after the fact.
That's good.
So that was good. I really enjoyed many of the different dateable weapons. There's I don't even know how many of them. 7 maybe. There's a bunch. They're pretty great. There is one character who is a human garbage fire. They're not one of the dateable weapons, but they are integral to the story, and we've seen a lot of people with some really strong objections about the way that was handled. There's warning up front also about the fact that the game contains stalking, emotional manipulation, etc. And that's definitely true. And yeah, this character really reminded me of someone horrible that I dated. It was kind of unpleasant, but also I appreciated that the game absolutely allowed me to call him on his BS at every opportunity if I so chose.
That's good.
So, yeah. But other than that piece, the rest of the game is just completely delightful. And I really appreciated that. I love the back and forth between the dating sim part and the like actually taking your sword into the dungeon and fighting monsters part. Because the other dating sim type games that I have played just they get not necessarily boring, but it's really essentially a visual novel. And so it's not as engaging, whereas this was constantly bouncing back and forth between going in the dungeon and leveling up my connection with the sword. And then once you leveled up with them, when you left the dungeon, you had a date.
It's the Persona formula. Let's intersperse a whole bunch of like visual novel with some moments of gameplay and keep things interesting.
But it definitely works really well here. It certainly kept me interested because I just was not able to put it down. And the fighting part of the gameplay was pretty fun. It's, there's nothing earth-shattering about it. It's simple and straightforward, but it's pretty satisfying. I like all the interesting monsters, and of course you're fighting through a mall. So it's just, it's entertaining, and you go through the levels, and occasionally you have a little breather and a chance to talk to your weapon, and then take a break, and then continue murdering things in the dungeon.
So did you have a preferred weapon?
So in terms of the combat, I preferred, I think, probably Sunder and Seven were my favorites. So Sunder was sort of a more traditional sword, and it had a bleed effect on it. And Seven is a laser saber, so it had sort of a shock effect. But
Sunder is the character that's been primary in all the marketing so far, right?
Yeah. Yes. But I also really appreciated Pocket, who is Brass Knuckles, and that's actually the character that I did the sort of the end of the game. It sort of does the standard thing of saying like, hey, this is the end, you can't save after this part, you have to pick one of your companions that you've maxed out your affection with to do this. And I chose Pocket, who is a kitty.
Adorable.
It was great. But yeah, I mean, with the caveats of taking the warnings the game gives you seriously, if you think those themes will be problematic for you, maybe skip this one. But otherwise, I really, really enjoyed it. And all of the characters that you can romance are interesting and very distinct from each other.
I think it's kind of basically out on everything, but maybe like phones or whatever, and it may even be out on that. It's missing PlayStation apparently. It's out on Windows, Switch, and Xbox One.
Yeah,
It's also available through Game Pass if you have Game Pass.
I have my key from Kickstarter for Steam, but I also purchased it on Switch, and it was great on Switch. That's where I completed it.
So like this isn't a thing about Sword Boyfriend necessarily, but I didn't realize how good of a platform the Switch is for effectively adventure games. Because like I said, I ended up getting lost replaying West of Loathing, and it plays extremely good on a Switch. Like
On the handheld version?
handheld version, yeah. Like I mean, it's got multiple different ways to access all the menus, but like it's a really great hanging out in bed game. Because like West of Loathing doesn't ask a lot out of you.
Yeah.
But it's just great just to like run around and do nonsense. I really hope they do more games. I mean, I realize they just released DLC for West of Loathing, but I hope they do more games in the Loathing series. But it does make me want to kind of explore some adventure style games for the Switch, because I think the handheld would work well for that. So, game we talked about last week, and at that point only Tam had played, is The Ascent. And pretty much as soon as we got off the show, I went out to Steam and picked it up, not realizing that it's also on Game Pass, and I could have played it for free. Side note, Game Pass is a phenomenal deal. Like, it is truly a phenomenal deal. Like, there's tons of stuff on that thing. But anyway, The Ascent is really good. Like, I mean, we refer to it as Cyberpunk Diablo, and I don't know if it really is Cyberpunk Diablo.
No, I firmly reject that descriptor, but it is a really good game. Like, I don't think it doesn't tick off all of the, or actually very many of the Diablo boxes for me. It doesn't have randomized levels. It doesn't have very randomized loot. It doesn't have a lot of loot, but it is really fun.
Like, if you cranked up the loot and made the loot more interesting, like, I feel like it would kind of fit a similar niche, but it doesn't. Yeah, no. I mean, like, it's a fun game. It is doing some of the things that Diablo does, but it's a beautiful world. Like, the world is gorgeous.
Yeah. I mean, it's horrible. It's terrible, but
like
it's pretty.
It's a trash dump, but
it's a lovingly rendered trash dump.
Yeah, I also picked it up, and I played long enough to like get the actual opening credits and like reach what seems to be a hub. Yeah, so it's pretty decent.
I mean, I've played a bit further than that. I have no idea how to track what a mission is in that game because they kind of bleed into each other. But
I mean, there's sort of a main story mission and then a lot of side missions. I think I don't know. I hit maybe level 12 or 13, mostly like alternating main and side quests. But yeah, really fun. I appreciate a game that's very un-Diablo-like. I appreciate that it lets me say, hey, I like this weapon. I'm going to just keep upgrading it forever.
I did run into the issue, either I missed it, or the game just never bothers to tell you that you have a dodge button.
I found that on my own.
And I got just super murdered by things.
I've heard this several times now.
And was griping to Tam about it, and Tam was like, "Yeah, it's a little difficult when you only have the initial weapon, but like you dodge through things." And I was like, "Wait, dodge through things?"
Yup.
Because that's how you avoid getting murdered.
Right.
I was like kiting things all over the place, slowly plinking away at them with this garbage pistol. No, you dodge through.
Yeah, and like I think it's space on keyboard and mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I found it just because tapping space is a thing you do in games.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened to me. It took me a minute to put two and two together and realize like, oh, this thing is murdering me because I'm not dodging out of the way.
But yeah, once I found the dodge, then it was a lot of fun. And then I got a weapon that was actually like had automatic fire and like a special ability that let me punch things. And yeah.
That special ability really makes the difference in gameplay. Because, like, there's some stuff that just runs up on you and you need it to stop.
Yep.
And boom, you hit it with the thing. I wish it didn't have quite so long of a cooldown, but...
Yeah, most of the specials seem to have a really long cooldown, but I found one that I am enjoying that basically just will auto-target things around you and unload your clip into them. So that's kind of nice. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Just wouldn't quite call it a Diablo-type game.
Well, and I mean, to be fair, Tam doesn't really get Diablo in the first place. He's never understood our enjoyment of the game, so like, I don't think he necessarily understands what the fundamentals of what makes Diablo enjoyable are. It's an action RPG, like that's really what it is. But it does feel good, like it's a competent twin stick shooter. Like I feel like I use cover a lot more in a casual way, not actually using the cover mechanic. Like, putting things between me and the other enemy seems more useful than actually ducking behind a thing and firing over top of it.
Yeah.
Because you can do that aim up thing, but it always feels like it's more pain than it's worth. I just run around a lot and shoot stuff. And if I need to reload, I duck behind something. One of the mechanics that I enjoyed but also seemed to be largely useless was the whole neutral mobs thing.
The poor robots that just die horribly.
I'm talking about where like there are things that are neutral to you until you mess with them, and by mess with them I mean walk too close to them
or shoot them.
Yeah,
or shoot them.
Yeah, that aren't immediately aggressive. Yeah, I've run into a couple of those. Yeah.
Like you encounter them a lot with like street gangs and stuff, and then you go aggro to the entire street gang. But like for me, all that really did was allow me to set up time to figure out how I was going to fight them.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciated that because, especially for some of those encounters that are a big gang, it lets you get into position, get yourself ready, and then engage on your own terms.
One minor annoyance that I encountered a few times is you will be running along and there'll be a thing that has aggro on you that you don't see on your screen yet, but's firing at you. And it's a lot of cases, it's like when you have aggroed a gang of things. There are gang members off screen that you can't see yet because you've not gotten to that chunk of the map. But if you are not behind cover, they can absolutely just be firing at you off screen.
Yeah, that would be a little frustrating.
I would definitely say it's well worth checking out, though, especially if you've got Game Pass, because both of these things that we've talked about tonight are just free to install if you've got the PC Game Pass or on Xbox.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds like I'm shilling for Game Pass, but like, really, it's a phenomenal deal. You know, if I were not as married to PC gaming as I already am, I could see a world where I would just have an Xbox and Game Pass and play whatever the hell was on it.
Doesn't Game Pass work on PC?
Yes, it absolutely does.
It has a limited subset of games, but also
it's not that limited.
You have to install it through the Xbox app, so
yeah.
But it works. I mean, and there's a bunch of stuff there.
I mean, I assume it is less of a whole thing than installing PSO2 was back, in the early days.
Most games aren't constantly updating MMOs, so they don't have quite that much of a problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
also, PSO was its own special kind of hell.
It was.
It is a worse experience than any of the other storefronts. Because GOG Galaxy and Epic Game Store and Steam and probably even Origin are preferable experiences to using a Windows installer client. Even though it's through the Xbox app, it's still the Windows Store.
It has improved, but I would not say it is good.
Yeah, it is. It is a better experience than it used to be. But that's kind of a low bar. Does not try and reinstall the client on patch. That's maybe the bar that it is of it being better.
does not take up 90 gigabytes of your hard drive and then hide it all away and start all over again.
I mean, it absolutely sometimes installs things in a method in which you can't actually access the directories. It occasionally installs things as system.
Oof.
So another reprisal from last week is we talked a bit about Bullet Heart, and it sounds like you've done some co-op gaming of it.
Yeah, Ash brought it over, and me and him, he taught me how to play, and this game definitely seems like it would be a thing if we had 3-minute timers checking us. But we weren't doing that. We were matching patterns and clearing bullets and just trying to out-survive each other. And then it was revealed that all of the characters have a boss mode. When you flip them over, you have to fight the hard version of them. And the one we did was the technologist. And
her big thing on her front side is she has to sum up the number of bullets, the numbers on her bullets to clear bullets from her field. Her boss version is called the Ghost in the Machine, and it doesn't directly attack you.
It's so kind. Instead, all it's going to do is tell you that you can only get an exact number of bullets cleared in a given round in order to break her shield. But the number of bullets you can clear is 5 per player, and each round you add 10 bullets, 9 to 11 bullets into your bag. So what we did not realize until it was far too late is she killed us with math. Because we
just start accumulating.
Yeah, like you want to clear down so that the number of bullets you have on your board is a manageable number. And if you are spending the first couple of rounds trying to deal damage to her, you are accumulating too many bullets. And then you aren't going to be able to clear fast enough and you're going to die. So you have to somehow precisely tune how much, what turns you are spending clearing bullets and what turns you are spending trying to get that precise number. But there's a lot of cool mechanics where you're working together as a group and you can send bullets back and forth and there's a whole bunch of interesting things, and boy, this seems like it's going to be a hard game to beat the bosses on. But it also seems like there are different difficulty bosses. I actually think she might be one of the easier ones that I saw. Maybe not. Maybe her math is just too oppressive. But they all have different themes, and it's really fun to play. I love playing co-op board games, especially ones that are that crunchy.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I am continually astounded by how different some of the characters are. In a general sense, they're all playing patterns to get bullets off of their board, but how this actually works for each one is sometimes wildly different.
So you did it as a 2-player co-op. Does it scale up with additional players?
It is, yes. You can have up to 4, and they take a number of bullets per player in order to break a level of their shields.
You can actually play the boss mode from 1 to 4, so you can even play it solo if you want.
Okay. So basically it's a break bar.
Yes. I would suspect that it's actually much you probably prefer to have 4 people though, because that just gives you there are more options and you can help each other out more. One of the big things is you can take a bullet and send it at one of your partners off of your board. And frequently you could have a bullet on your board that you don't want to be there anymore, and you can just give it to a partner. Or your partners might really want a bullet that you have on their board and they can ask you for it. And so the best case scenario is when you have a bullet you don't want and they want that bullet, then it's maximum value for you just transferring that bullet to them. And that's going to be more likely if you have 3 other partners to work with.
So, okay, I'm trying to visualize this in my head, and you're saying in terms of bullet hell shooters, when you say there's a bullet that is yours that you can just give to another player, is it like literally a bullet floating out there in flight?
Yes.
Or
I mean, it's like there is a bullet on your screen in front of you.
Okay.
And you really don't want that to get to the bottom of your screen.
You have a grid, and if things get to the bottom, they hit you, and that's bad.
Okay.
And so how, like, this is also like a bullet hell shooter in that you probably are getting, like, in the normal game, somewhere from like maybe 10 to 20 bullets to deal with a turn, and you die if you get hit by 4 of them.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
So are there ways to get your shield back after you've had basically a portion of it knocked off?
There is one character that can do this. It costs almost all of their resources, and to start, they only have 2 health. Yep.
But also that character can be partly, is usually resistant to a color at a time.
Yep.
So things that would hit them just, go to the next person. They get automatically cleared.
Yep.
This feels like the sort of thing that would get confusing real fast.
I mean, it depends on it depends on if you like these types of games. I was able to pick it up, but I know my wife, definitely this was not her style of game. But it actually felt more Tetris attacky to me than bullet hell shooter.
Well, like what you're describing honestly does kind of seem Tetris-y, to where you've got, they're bullets, yes, but they're basically falling and you need to do something while they're moving.
Basically.
Yep.
It's a lot like playing a puzzle game like that.
And then all of the bullets you clear go to your opponent. So it's very much like Tetris Attack. If you clear 15 bullets in a turn, all 15 of those go into your opponent's bag. And then they have to deal with those. And in the timed game, it's hilarious because now they have to try and draw 15 plus like 5 or 6 bullets, so like 20 bullets out of their bag in a 3-minute span and deal with those. And if they don't, then, well, they just have to deal with what happens if they randomly draw all of these bullets. And usually that means they die.
Yeah, so basically the avalanche that happens in Tetris Attack.
Yes. I'm horrified by the idea of this 3-minute timer. Like, I want to try it, but I feel like they could have done a 5-minute timer and it would have been reasonable.
I suspect their timer is kind of carefully chosen. Like their timer in Millennium Blades also feels kind of carefully chosen, and that one's 20 minutes.
I mean, carefully chosen in that by round 3, you should not be able to deal with this.
Yes.
That's fair.
That they're essentially putting an upper bound to how long a game is going to last.
Well, so
The box claims the game is going to last 15 minutes.
I would be hard-pressed to see a game truly last that long. Because that means you managed to do 5 rounds, or 4 rounds before dying.
I mean, that sounds possible. Also, there's some time in between rounds.
I guess that's true. It is definitely a game. So this game actually also reminds me a little bit of Galaxy Trucker in that regard, where like timing, going fast is important. And I imagine there's just a gigantic skill wall on this game. I mean, I realize that there are characters that they claim are easier and harder, but I don't feel like that's enough of a handicap to make this reasonable once one player is good and others are not.
That's fair. And yeah, probably true.
This game probably needs more of a handicap system.
Just take double intensity. I'm sure that'll be fine.
I mean, double intensity is fine until you realize that means you have more things to send at your opponents.
It's
like,
true.
I guess
you can deal with it.
You get yeah, but like, I mean, I will point out I was routinely taking like 3 rough roads in Galaxy Trucker. Like,
that's fair.
There is definitely going to be a skill gap here, and like, there are going to be people who get I would love to get very good at this game because it seems like a fun game to play over and over and over. On the other hand, I also think that this game is a lot more random than Galaxy Trucker, and like just a bad draw might kill you. So maybe there's also that.
I mean, there are definitely some tools to mitigate that, but they do take time and resources. So
Yes.
So we've talked a lot about Final Fantasy XIV, and this week a controversy happened of sort that a lot of games have gone through.
this is my tired sigh.
Yeah. So one of the things that like is important to understand about Final Fantasy XIV in general. So playing World of Warcraft, everything that ever got released was data mined well ahead of when a patch actually came out.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were no secrets to the point of which like Wowhead posts full cinematic videos of everything that's in the next patch really quickly. So it was very common for something to get data mined in World of Warcraft. And I have not followed this very closely, but somehow the community was tipped off that Cruise Chaser, the phase of Alex, was going to be coming to the game as a mount. It was just a thing that was known in the community, and I don't know where the source of the information came from. I don't know if it was a comment that Yoshi P made. I don't know if it came from a live letter. Whatever the case, it was quote-unquote known that Cruise Chaser would be coming to the game.
The answer is almost certainly data mining, because while it's the developers have been cracking down on public posts of things that people have data mined, but it's not like it doesn't still happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I said, it was known, and the deep speculation was that this would be the next PvP mount.
What?
And people are upset that their speculation was wrong.
People are upset that it is a $30 store mount that came out on Friday. I think it was Friday. Maybe it was Thursday.
It's not even the first one.
No.
Or like the fifth one.
Right. Like it is a thing that has happened a lot, and it feels like the money from store mounts goes back into the game because we have all kinds of crazy little extraneous systems. But a certain community that PvPs for mounts was really pissed off that this is not a in-game obtainable mount.
But there
Boo-hoo.
was nothing saying it would...
Right.
Yeah, basically.
Man, this mount looks super cool, by the way. I'm looking at
super
pictures.
Cool. I absolutely dropped money on it. It is awesome. It is a really cool mount.
I mean, this is still cheaper than the whale, right? And the chocobo thing.
Yes.
I mean, well, yes, I would like to ride around on... Is it Starscream?
Basically, yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
I'm not a Transformer aficionado, which is the one that turns into a jet.
I mean, Starscream is one of the Seekers, yes.
Lots of them
There's a lot of them
jets.
that turn into jets, yeah.
People did call this Starscream while Alex 11 was current, though.
So there's a counter frustration in the community, and there has been for a really long time, that goes the opposite direction of people being pissed that there's a lot of unique stuff locked behind the system that very few players ever use, aka PvP. Because like every season there's a unique item of some sort. It's been armor, it's been mounts, and the mounts are really cool looking. Like I would love to have the drill cycle thing that's from a couple seasons ago.
They may introduce the recolor at some point.
I'm hoping that we at least get a recolored version of those mounts somewhere available. But yeah, so like that's been a small amount of drama in the 14 community. And it's only been a handful of people. And some of the most vocal people that I've seen have been recent WoW transplants to the 14 community.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. And I mean, and I feel like that's another thing that should be talked about is for the mass influx of people from World of Warcraft in that community, I would say the atmosphere of the game has changed very little.
Yeah. Like I've done expert roulettes and people have been just as pleasant as ever. Like
Yeah, I mean,
no issues.
I wiped my face off today to Thornton Extreme. And nobody was angry and nobody was grumpy about it. I just queued for it thinking, oh, hey, this is on Chloe's list today or this week. I'll see if I can queue for it. Because I queued for one of the Alex's, Fist of the Sun, and it went smoothly. I'm like, well, we'll try Thornton Extreme.
Those are on completely different levels, Bell.
I know, they are. It had been a really long time since I had done Thornton Extreme.
That was a rough fight.
It was a rough fight. And it's
so cool.
If you're doing it with a bunch of sprouts.
Yeah.
But we got pretty far. So we encountered a bug, and this was horrible. And here's the only way that I can figure it actually went down. We had a couple of players that were disconnecting, and one of them, instead of disconnecting, I think did the thing where it strands your character in the world, but the character wasn't actually in the instance with us, but it also wasn't anywhere else. So I don't know if it was maybe below the battlefield or above the battlefield or whatever, but we wiped hard, and then had to proceed to wait for us to hit the enrage, which is a really long enrage, before it finally wiped that player. You can't kick somebody from your party if you're in combat.
Nope.
You can't vote dismiss if you're in combat. But we got pretty far. We were basically in the segment at the end where everything just keeps repeating, but people would somehow miss a mechanic when it's in the less dance-like phase.
They would look at the eye.
They would look at the eye, or they would forget to stack up to protect the healer, or and then we would be down to just 2 healers and 2 tanks. And there were a couple times we almost got to an LB3 to bring back the entire party. And if we ever did that, if we ever managed to actually get that off, we would have been fine, because we had reached a point in the fight where it was manageable again. But so we were wiping constantly. Nobody was grumpy about it. Everybody was pretty chill. I mean, the grumpiest I have seen was earlier when I was in Heaven on High with this guy that claims, first of all, he told us he was an elitist, and then he told us that he wanted every single blue chest.
Wait. Those 2 things don't line up.
Then he told us that he had been playing the game for a week. And I'm like, why the hell are you in Heaven on High if you've only been playing the game for a week?
How did you even get to Heaven on High if you've only been playing the game for a week?
I don't know. I'm like, so
you can't buy a level 60 boost anymore.
What job was he on? Was he on
Samurai?
Oh, there you go.
If he story skipped, he could get to Samurai at 61 pretty easily.
Yeah.
Samurai does start at 50, but that's still possible. Yeah.
Why? Why?
Yeah, that's the real question.
Because he felt he needed 99 weapons.
I mean,
you get those by just doing things.
Just doing it over time. I've been capped for multiple years at this point. I'm and I'm not going to uncap, because why would I buy one of those weapons? And eventually, Thalen, Warren, and Ray and I are going to do a run past 100 eventually.
Yeah, one of these days when all of us are actually, online
at the same time.
Yeah, mostly you.
Mostly me.
Ray and Warren and I are on at the same time all the time.
Yes, because y'all are up super late. I am not up super late.
Drink more caffeine.
I can't do the late night thing like I used to.
I know. It's harder for me than it was as well.
I mean, I also get up at 5. I don't know if all of you.
Dear Lord.
At 5.
Hell no.
Yes, I get up at 5 in the morning.
No, God.
That's why I don't stay up late.
I didn't get up that early when I did have to go into the office. I certainly don't get up that early now.
Yeah, no, I've always gotten up that early. I just didn't sleep at one point.
Wait, Bell, didn't you used to do late night raiding?
I did. I just didn't sleep.
Wow.
It was not unheard of for me to basically go to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning and get back up at 5. I just didn't sleep. And at some point, as I aged, my body decided I would like some sleep.
Sleep is good, actually.
I would like 6 hours roughly.
See, I just repurpose lunch as nap time these days.
I wish I could take a nap. God, I wish I could take a nap. I have this fraught relationship with sleep in general. If I take a nap, my brain thinks, oh, well, you had 30 minutes. Clearly that's a full night's worth of sleep. We're just not going to let you sleep tonight.
I'll see, and then you could stay up late and play games with us. It's perfect.
I'm not convinced that's a good recommendation there.
No downside.
I have fought insomnia my entire life, and yeah, no, like if I take a nap, I will just be up all night, and then I won't function in the morning.
Okay, minimal downside.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a downside to it. But yeah, no, like I literally used to be in a group called Late Night Raiders that would stop raiding about 3 a.m. my time, or at least that was when I usually left.
I was like, it was usually. Yeah, that was. You must have been staying up even later because I remember we usually wrapped up around 3
I also
Eastern.
remember falling asleep in Naxxramas.
I don't remember
I was
that.
running into a corner, and apparently, like people were trying to get a hold of me, and I had fallen asleep at the keyboard. Because I think Tam was one of the people that was trying to get a hold of me.
Yeah, sounds right.
But anyway,
Okay, so
store mounts.
Yeah. So real quick, I just assumed that Cruise Chaser was in fact meant to be a Transformers reference because there is a legit absolute Transformers reference in there, Brute Justice. Like that's Bruticus. Like all the robots are named after the Combaticons. In fact, Cruise Chaser is from Nobuo Uematsu's very first game that he ever did a soundtrack for back in 1985. I had no idea.
Huh.
Wow.
I mean,
Cruise Chaser Blasty.
A PC game.
I mean, the best part is that you get to listen to the Cruise Chaser music while flying the mount.
Forward and back.
Yep.
I feel like I'd have to turn that off very, very quickly.
Yeah, probably.
It looks really weird too, because like you're basically just surfing atop it.
When it's flying, but you're more riding on its shoulders when you're on the ground.
It
Also, apparently,
doesn't
two-player
really
mount.
seem to scale based on your racial size either. So like I just have a really huge mount with a tiny Lalafell on it.
There are a few like that. Like Magitech armor is the same size no matter who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I have also been on a recruiting spree to the free company.
It's madness.
I mean, is it unexpected?
It is not. But yeah, we've gone from like between like 2 and maybe 6 people online at any given time to like there are 11 people online right now. There were more earlier when we started the podcast.
Yeah, it's my whole instinct of people will tell me, oh hey, I want to play Final Fantasy. Where should I play? Oh, come play with us. And it's gotten to the point where like some people are server transferring to come over to Cactuar.
I mean, it's a good server.
Is a thing that you can do. You just have to do it in the morning.
I was going to say, I thought our server was very locked.
Nope, it unlocks every single morning.
Okay.
I mean, they're all pretty much they're all pretty much locked during prime time and unlocked during off hours. The Moonfire Fair started on Friday, and
It did.
Cactuar proved itself once again that it's an amazing server.
No.
Because the first thing I saw was people stacking the bears,
Oh, yeah.
and it got pretty tall. And then somebody decided to make a pyramid.
I did see this.
And they made a pyramid out of bears. And then, this is not Cactuar, but someone basically made Brute Justice out of bears.
Nice.
Beartron.
But if you have access to the game, and also I think there's still the welcome back event going on, and you have a character of 30 or higher, you should totally go get yourself an adorable polar bear friend. It has icicle magic when you use its special ability.
It makes a snowflake, but it's a 4-sided snowflake, so it like
Wait,
annoys
what?
me. Yes.
Maybe they'll fix it later.
And it also like snows after you use it.
Yeah, it makes like a big 4-sided snowflake above you, and like ice crystals fall down from it. Yep.
So your bear can stay cool. I mean, in the tradition of Final Fantasy events, it's just a bunch of, quick dialogue quests, but
It's and one fate, yeah. Which, it being the Moonfire Fair, involves fighting a bombard. It's an ice bomb.
Of course it does.
And all of the weirdos from previous Moonfire Fairs show up to help, because,
Because of course they do.
I kind of love that, the holiday events have a reoccurring cast of characters.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my favorite is still, I can't imagine that anything will surpass Christmas as my favorite, because Godbird is Santa Claus.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Halloween event is one of my favorites. Just the incompetent villains of the Halloween event.
Yeah,
Yes.
the whole story of the Halloween event is pretty great.
That is my traditionally most favorite. And also they have really interesting things usually as the cosmetics you can get from Halloween. I have a werewolf outfit for some reason. I mean, the flying broom mount is pretty great. I'm very happy they went with a happy, friendly polar bear instead of a murder bear.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they'd go in the murder bear.
Yeah, it is a cute, cuddly polar bear who would like a Coca-Cola.
Yeah. So did we want to talk about Wildermyth, or do we want to bump that one?
I mean, I have a bit to say, but I know Tam is also playing with us. But I recommend people check it out. That's going to be my top level thing.
Yeah, that.
It's very good, and if you have a group to play with, it's very fun to play as a group, but I think it would also be really fun to play solo.
Kind of like Moon Hunters. Reminds me a lot of Moon Hunters. I should probably stop talking about it because we're probably going to talk about it next week.
Yup. I mean, I can talk about Katana Zero now. Because apparently Ash said you should play Katana Zero one too many times and decided to just give it to me. And Ash is correct. I do like this game that is like a bit of like speed run, slash 'em up thing. I feel like I have missed a bunch of games in this oeuvre because it's also very psychedelic and trippy. Like, drug use features heavily in this game. And, like, maybe you're being controlled by the people who are giving you the drugs, and maybe there's weird, like, mystical stuff happening. This game also heavily features time travel because you're given a drug that lets you see into the future. But then when you start to go off of that drug and have withdrawals, there might be some problems. And, like, you start skipping around in the timeline a whole bunch.
I will say, when I gave you this game, I did not actually know how trippy the story was.
It's a pretty... Do you now know how trippy the story is?
Yes, I do.
It's a very trippy... Like, I mean, the conceit is, like, we're going to send you through a whole bunch of rooms where you're going to die. But it's okay because all you're doing is you're planning your moves. Like, you're seeing into the future of how you're going to do this room. And so when you die, obviously that was a branch of the future that was incorrect. And then once you're done through, it like shows a like security footage of your character going through and like slicing up all of the enemies. Because for as difficult as the game is, you are the most powerful creature because you cannot be killed. Because you can always keep trying. But it is definitely like one hit will kill you. You cannot take a single hit. And you're asked to go kill a whole bunch of people. And each day you go back and you talk to your handler who's also your psychiatrist. And your psychiatrist's a terrible person because he's also the person giving you this drug.
I was going to say, it sounds like a conflict of interest there.
Yeah, he's the one giving you this drug and telling you to go kill people. But it is fun. I feel like this is a game that was heavily inspired by games like Hotline Miami, which I have not played, but understand like this might have a similar vibe to.
I have played Hotline Miami. It's a weird game.
This is a weird game too. It's got those things in common. But if you want to go jump around and slash at things and reflect bullets back with your katana, this is a game for you. It's not that long. Honestly, I am now to the point where I have a hard time judging how hard games like these are because I've gotten very good at them, but it doesn't feel that hard. It feels noticeably easier than Celeste.
That's not... Look.
I mean, it feels easier than, like, Celeste A-Side. I also realize that might not be a good comparison.
I mean, that one's at least acceptable.
I have managed to get to World Chapter 7 on the seasides in that, which means that the game is now asking me to absolutely know how to do wall jumps.
But I thought you said you did absolutely know how to do wall jumps now.
I do know how, well, it asked me to do 7 wall jumps in a row, and I was able to do it. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive, because those have somewhat finicky timing.
This is not the game I was thinking it was. For whatever reason, I was thinking this was the game that was a spiritual successor to Ninja Gaiden.
That's The Messenger, and we Cody talked about that a little while ago.
The Messenger is great. Yeah, no, this is a very different game. But The Messenger is great. And I'm not even a huge fan of the Ninja Gaiden games. But the Ninja Gaiden games were mostly made... if I remember correctly, don't the Ninja Gaiden games also have Mega Man-style knockbacks?
Yes.
Yeah,
way worse than Mega Man, quite frankly.
Yeah, the Messenger does not, as I recall.
Yeah, there were a lot of places in Ninja Gaiden where you could get knocked back and fall off of a pit and basically just die forever.
So I have gotten on this big like side-scrolling platformer game kick, and I gave up on Mega Man 11. I was like, nope, it turns out this can belong as a relic to the past for me. I don't need this.
I mean, to be fair, Castlevania had the same thing going on.
Castlevania has a lot less pits.
Clock tower.
Yeah, like, I feel like there's some Castlevania missing from your education.
Yeah, that.
Possibly.
Clock fucking tower.
Yep. Endless Medusas.
Medusa heads, yeah.
Which, is this from Symphony of the Night?
No.
Original.
From original Castlevania.
Oh, sure. Yes. I have not played a bad Castlevania game.
It's not a bad Castlevania game.
It's just Castlevania.
It's just, yeah. Like Symphony of the Night, you fall in a pit, it just takes you to, the bottom of the pit. There's not like, it doesn't kill you. The original Castlevania was it was a side scroller.
Symphony of the Night, it does still have a clock tower.
It does, and it's still full of Medusa heads, and they're still really annoying.
And if you fall down a pit in the clock tower, you generally fall into spikes, which will kill you.
That's true. There are a lot of spikes.
I guess I don't remember this part because I did beat Castlevania Symphony of the Night within the pet.
To be fair, prior to Symphony of the Night, there were more games not like Symphony of the Night in the Castlevania series than there were Symphony of the Night games.
No, I totally get it. I'm just like, I haven't played those.
You should play Castlevania 2.
You know what?
No.
All I'm hearing.
No, I'm not going to recommend that you play Castlevania 2.
All I am hearing is that no, I probably shouldn't play Castlevania 2.
I mean, it is proto Symphony of the Night.
It is that, but it doesn't mean you need to play it.
Look, if you want to play something like Castlevania 2, but it's actually good, play Faxanadu.
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't need all of this uncontrollable knockback.
You liked Zelda 2.
I did-ish. I've never actually beaten Zelda 2.
I also like Zelda 2. You might
actually like
Castlevania 2.
Yeah, it's true. Like there's a lot similar between the two.
I think Castlevania jumps will drive you crazy now.
Probably.
That's what I think.
I suspect that's true.
The fixed arc jump.
Oh, yeah. I like having some air control.
Once you've left the platform, you have no control over your jump.
I like having some air control.
All you can really do is control the moment at which you jump.
Yep.
I mean, granted, like, to me now, that kind of jump feels archaic, but I played enough of it.
I mean, at the time, that was really the norm.
It also feels familiar that I can still play it.
Yes, but when you look at all of these games, I would point out that the games that we consider as holding up are games like Mario.
Oh, sure. No,
which had air control for your jumps.
Yeah, yes. No,
Well,
yes.
to be fair,
having some
Metroid-
control in the air. Yeah, Metroid also did.
also had air control, and
Yep.
it was good because of that.
Yep. No, I will not argue that having air control is preferable and feels much better. Just that it was very much not the norm at the time.
I mean, I will be perfectly honest. I played a lot of bad games as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I beat Quest 64.
I'm so sorry.
Why did you do that to yourself?
Because I liked RPGs, and there was an RPG for the N64.
There were 2 RPGs for the N64.
Okay, I believe you. What was the other one?
Aiden Chronicles.
I don't think I knew about that one.
It was possibly worse.
Ooh.
I played the 8-bit Dragonlance game for the original NES. Note I do not say I beat it. I don't think any human being
It
has
was
ever beat that
bad.
game.
There
was
were a lot of sponsored properties that were just incomprehensible games.
Like, as I recall, that was a game where, like, a member of the Dragonlance, the characters traveled from left to right on the screen until they got to a pit, and then they fell in a pit. And then a different member of the party did the same thing until you ran out of members of the party, and then the game was over. Theoretically, if you hit like a jump button at just the right time, you could jump over that pit, and then you fell in the next pit.
Fun.
Like it was like Atari ET level bad.
Yeah. I mean, there were a couple games that I would say gave ET a run for their money. And they were all sponsored properties to where somebody tried to do a quick flip after they bought the rights to something. But like Commodore 64 had a lot of those kind of games too. Like, I love Mask, the toy line and cartoon, but the Commodore 64 officially licensed Mask games are awful.
Yeah.
Let's talk about good games next week.
We've talked about some good games this week.
It's true.
Katana Zero is a great game.
I mean, we talked about it before, but if you've not played West of Loathing, you should play West of Loathing.
You really should. It is a fantastic and hilarious game. And if you really like that sense of humor, you could go check out Kingdom of Loathing. It's still going.
It is still viable. It is still a good game.
And it's still an entertaining game. Yeah.
I don't know when I started playing Kingdom of Loathing. I know I don't have my original character anymore.
I do. I like originally started playing.
It was like 2000 maybe.
It was just barely too late to get the inflatable dodecapede. Like it was really early on.
It may have been. I don't know when it started.
Like
2000 when it started.
Oh, that 2003. I think I started playing in 2004.
Yeah, like I remember playing at the Palm Pilot development place. And I was there from 2003 to 2005. And before Kingdom of Loathing, there was another game similar to Kingdom of Loathing that got me into Kingdom of Loathing.
There's a bunch.
But it was it had like way less fidelity.
Yeah.
Was it Goofy?
That doesn't sound familiar at all.
No. Was it like a Goofy game or was it a serious game?
It was a Goofy game. It was
okay.
A Goofy game.
But yeah, the whole browser-based like energy mechanic.
Yo.
Like it felt similar to like the old BBS doors in a lot of ways.
So there was a game, and can I not find any history of it because the game was called Space. And that's not something you can just search for anymore.
Yeah, SEO wasn't a thing back in the day.
There was a game that I remember coming out as a competitor of Kingdom of Loathing that was like almost like outer space Church of the Subgenius themed. And you had like these companies, and you joined a company, and the companies like could impose rules upon your gameplay. And all I remember is that basically everyone had super risque avatars. Like that's.
When I was
surprising.
When I was young, I played one of these that was based on like World War II and you were like one of the 5 countries, but like it was thousands of people, or probably not thousands, probably like dozens of people playing a single country, and like you would try and work together and like form alliances between the different nations, but like all of the countries had to like agree on like what their overall strategy would be for that campaign.
Well, there's the one that was going on forever where you basically like roll a country. And I forget what that one's called. But like basically you like establish trade with other players that have countries and you know, establish rules, can go to war with other countries. I do not remember what that one's called, but that one is also really long running. I feel like we should actually do some research and talk about this legitimately, because there's a bunch of these games that are lost to time.
They are so lost to time, though. Like, all of these have been replaced with other energy-based mobile games that, like, that are much more popular, but, like, don't have the community.
Yeah, well, and they don't have the writing, because that was that's one of the things with Kingdom of Loathing is there's so much content and so much humor and so much wordplay humor in there, and like even a lot of the other browser RPGs didn't have a lot of that. Like even when they did have humor, it was like stuff like Forum Wars, where it was all like you're a troll poting people on the forums for XPs. But yeah, Kingdom of Loathing and Forum Wars were the only ones I ever tried, and Kingdom of Loathing was the one that I actually kept playing. Is Secret Society Wars the one you're thinking of, Del?
Secret Society Wars, yes, that is it.
So apparently that's one that Boozer Bear made. I guess I don't know if before he was involved with Kingdom of Loathing or simultaneously or what.
I think there was like a falling out or something for a while, and part of the team that did Kingdom of Loathing went over and did Secret Society Wars. Yes, and I was like a alpha or beta tester or whatever. It was like
that makes sense.
Almost like a Google kind of scenario to where like you had to know someone to get an invite, and this guy I worked with like was super into it, but it did have a very Church of the Subgenius style humor to it. Is it still around?
I don't know. It doesn't seem like it is.
No, it's in a bunch of listings of like browser games, but I think part of the problem is like a lot of these were early JavaScript games, and then they got replaced by Flash games, and then Flash just notoriously died every time something happened.
Yep. Well, and Flash is very, very dead now.
Yeah, it's like 100% dead now.
Yep. But yes, it looks like the website like is technically still there and might still be owned by him, but it just couldn't connect to MySQL.
There's so many tombstones out there on the web of things of bygone days.
God, Forum Wars still exists. Yeesh. Yeah, there's this whole like subset of games from like the early 2000s that I think a lot of them are just going to like vanish into the mists as everybody that played them just like forgets about them over time.
I mean, that's honestly why I was super happy to see Kingdom of Loathing or West of Loathing be a thing. Because that's a real game. No, I mean, like, not that Kingdom of Loathing is not a real game. It's just, it could evaporate at a moment's notice, and there would be no recovering it.
Yeah.
It's a whole, like, it in webcomics, the last bastion of Web 1.0.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm less of a fan of this. Are we in Web 2.0 or Web 3.0?
We're in a web who is actually counting anymore.
Like, who the hell knows anymore?
That is fair, but it feels like we've got all of the services that used to be very disparate are now ultra consolidated.
So there was a time where I was actually working on a Kingdom of Loathing style game, and I never got super far. I was basically building the framework of how to load a zone and how to load characters, and but like what I really wanted was a a high fidelity version of Kingdom of Loathing that was serious.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I never got super far. I basically got like the character creation piece done and the representation of like inventory and things like that visualized. But it was using a lot of C# GDI 2 to render out images, and then the images would load. So it was like super slow to play, because like you basically had to generate an image anytime you did anything.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't just like swapping a bunch of sprites onto screen. Anyway, anything else we need to talk about tonight?
Go play Monster Hunter Stories 2.
That was also a game that was held up by my Switch update, so it is at least on my device now. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week.
Later.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See ya.